Hello, my name's Chris TT, and you're listening to Six Towns Radio.
Broadcasting to Stoke-on-Trent and the world. This is Six Towns Radio.
Six Towns Radio, and going over to the telephones today, really interesting guy on the phone. He's a musician, very prolific writer as well. We've got Chris TT on the line. Hi, mate.
How's it going? Are you all right?
Yeah. It's great to get you on finally. We've been playing your music for years now, and you got a new single, The Bear, that we were pushing. Tell us a little bit about that,
right,
first of all.
It's louder than I've been for a while, I guess. I've been making kind of acousticy, quiet music for maybe the last 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years. So it was really great to let loose and get the band in and make as much noise as possible. And just cut loose a bit.
Yeah. It's from the 9th album, which is released in October. What makes it different from your last offering, besides the loudness, then?
Oh, loads, because the last offering was a load of children's poems from the 1920s. I did an album of A.A. Milne poems.
Oh, of course,
so this one couldn't be more different, even though obviously it's called The Bear, so there's a kind of weird connection, but it's not. It's grown up, and it's I don't know. It's a much more a much darker thing. It's definitely an adult album. We did it as live as we could, so the band played basically standing in 2 rooms in the classic sort of way, playing the songs until we got them roughly right. So it's a very different experience from making a quiet, layered folk thing. Yeah,
I remember the poetry album, and I thought it's great to do, and you had the chance to do it. Was it something that you'd wanted to do for a while?
Yeah, I think it was largely tied to going to Edinburgh Festival. I really got the bug of wanting to go and do an Edinburgh Fringe show, and that was a really interesting way to do a one-man show, because obviously if I just went up there and did 26 gigs in a month in Edinburgh when a million other people are performing, I wouldn't be able to get any audiences. Whereas obviously if you tie it to really interesting, like with A.A. Milne, you don't need to have heard of Chris TT to be interested in going and seeing some musical versions of A.A. Milne poems. So that worked for me, definitely, and I had a brilliant time at Edinburgh for a month, and that's where the motivation came to do it.
Obviously, you write fiction, non-fiction, as well as music and poetry. Is there a time when it's just easier to write than others?
I think it totally depends what mood you're in. Writing, sometimes you'll write something, or you will have the original idea, and you won't even know what it's going to be. So sometimes I'll have an idea, and then it will end up being a short story. Or even non-fiction, like if you have an idea, nowadays, the minute anyone has an idea, they stick it on Twitter and then forget about it, which in a way gets in the way of the creative thing of it could be something bigger or longer. So sometimes I'll have an idea and I won't know whether it's going to be a ranty article for some magazine or a song, or end up being a piece of like short fiction. So it's quite confusing. You just you throw them all down and hope for the best.
Yeah, Twitter is a popular weapon of choice for you. Is that just random thoughts then you put on there, rather than ascertaining something bigger?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an outlet for funny stuff.
Yeah,
and it's an outlet for politics. And I think I get too political on Twitter. I'm trying to hold back a bit more because over the last few years I do get, like, if I'm annoyed about something. In a way, before Twitter, if we were briefly annoyed about something, we'd just be annoyed and no one would know, and then we get on with our lives. Whereas now, every time you're a bit annoyed about something, it's public, isn't it? And I think the problem is everyone started to think I'm just angry all the time, which I promise I'm not. I'm like really nice.
But do you get those days when you've put something up on Twitter and you think, oh, I better take that down, I better take it down?
Oh, I must have done, but I can't remember one. Yeah, sometimes. I think the thing for me is I quite often write a tweet and then save it in my drafts, and I build up a whole load of draft tweets. And then if I accidentally hit, there's that button that you can publish them all at once. And I swear, if I accidentally did that, my life would come crashing down. Because if you get this list of incredibly sort of angry tweets, and then every so often I go through and delete the ones that are a bit too extreme. So luckily, that's the level of restraint I've managed to stick with.
That's a good way of doing it. I'll have to keep that in mind rather than just keep deleting them.
In a way, that's the same way as songwriting, that you tend to have the real interesting creative ideas for songs if you're like out or late at night, or if you're in a really certain mood. And then obviously you can't finish the song right then. You have to save it up until you're in a more kind of craft or kind of a more structure type mood. So often you have a great idea in the night and then it turns into something the next day.
Yeah, it's interesting because you do see on Twitter quite a lot of the time people venting, and you think sometimes big famous people, you think, what are you saying that for? What are you saying that for?
Yeah.
And yeah, the draft system is there for a reason, and now I know why. It's not for when you've got no signal and it accidentally goes in there.
Yeah, although people would probably accuse me of being a venter as well, so I have to be careful with it. That's why I'm trying to do less. But I definitely agree, especially with really famous people, they can really show themselves up in a bad light, can't they?
And it is an instant thing. I think that's why people have embraced it so much, because you can have that instant interaction with people that you admire or people that you are a fan of.
Get an instant sort of feedback. Oh, I mean, not all the time, but we're definitely able to throw things in a lot easier, aren't we?
Yeah. Let's talk about touring, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
You're returning to touring after a short break, travelling up and down the country, spreading your word again. We're looking forward to it because there's a tour support for Emily Barker, isn't there?
Yeah, I can't wait, to be honest. It's going to be an amazing tour. I mean, Emily and her band, they're fantastic. They party really hard, and they just make really beautiful music, so it's a good combination for me. Plus, they've put me on their coach, so we're touring on a proper tour bus, and I've got like a berth on the tour bus. So I don't have to worry about the logistics of driving around or hotels or stuff. I can just rock up to the first show and then just be ready to go. And also I love being a support act, and I don't get to be a support act as often as I'd like. I do too many headline tours. And I love that whole thing that you kind of just give people who don't necessarily know your stuff, you give them a taste and give them, just a sort of handful of songs and then get off and let someone else do the rest of the night. It's a really enjoyable way of playing shows, I think.
Yeah, it is when you're used to doing your own tours, because you're the type of guy I've seen that'll play to venues that are on the circuit and one's off, in the middle of nowhere. You've got no no prerogative where you want to play, really. Oh
no, definitely. I actually love playing unusual spaces, and for the headline tour I've got a headline tour just before Christmas after the Emily Barker tour. Yeah. I specifically went out of the way to try and find venues that are a bit different. Or, I mean, often you can have really amazing shows in village halls because people come out, and it's some people that know you and like the stuff, but it's just as many people coming to be entertained, and so they tend to come with an open mind. And I love that whole thing of if you don't quite know what the space is, but it's not your bog standard sort of indie rock bar or whatever. I really love it if it's a bit different. And so, yeah, I tend to do that as much as I can. I mean, sometimes, in a way, right now, it's more difficult because when there's an album and we're sort of pushing hard and promoting and there's sort of marketing behind it, you just accidentally, by the way of things, tend to go a little bit more towards the mainstream. But as much as I can, I'll play in unusual spaces, yeah. Well, it's been a joy to have you on the show today, and good luck with the touring. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, great. I hope the album does just as well as the others, if not better. Well, it's exciting at the moment. Everyone seems to like it so far, so we're kind of pretty chirpy right now. So, yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, and good luck, mate. Ta-ra. Oh, no, thanks so much. Take care.